Hello, I'm Elisabeth Edgell, and we are here with More Than Meets the Eye, which is a podcast by Delaware County Community Awareness, and that might be how you all know me. We've been doing the group in Facebook there. We will have 23,000 members, I'm hoping by the end of the week. And we started there about 4 years ago, I believe June 28, 2018. So now this is our podcast, which we are going to be doing on a regular basis. We have an episode coming out later today, which is Thursday the 15th, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. We have a podcast coming out later today, our first one. And then tomorrow at 9 o'clock will be our regular podcast schedule. And we will have this episode coming out then. So this is Rick Yencer, who is with me. He is a former newsman, author, and outlaw. One day we'll have him explain that, but for today we'll stick with our topic. So thank you for coming today, Rick.
Always. I'm enjoyed to be in your company, and like I say, we've got a lot of things to say.
Oh, mercy, yeah. The topic today is, I believe on the schedule, it said something to the effect of budgets, citizen bash, and transparency, but it boils down to, what does your Delaware County government think of its taxpayers? Okay, because that's important. You know, we all talk about all the time what we think about them and the job that they're doing, and are they living up to their campaign promises, and, you know, are they doing what they set out to do, what we elected them to do? And you understand that. It's not like we go to judge, but we go to make sure. It's about follow through, right, Rick?
It's always about the public's right to know. And again, I can't say often enough, Liz, that it's our money. And we want to know how our money is spent to help us, to serve us, and to do for others. It's as simple as that. And government was always based, the democracy was always based on open to the people. It says right
an open forum concept, because we are our government, right? They are elected from us. They are a representative of us. They are supposed to use their voice to speak our concerns. They are our spokesperson. So if you hired a spokesperson, like when they hire somebody to be a spokesperson for a company, then, you know, they hire Shaq or something, and he doesn't get to say what he wants to say. He doesn't show up and it says his ball game. He has to say what they told him to say, what they've hired him to do. And that's what we're doing by going to these meetings, is making sure that they're doing their job, because we're the checks and balances of this system.
Exactly.
Right.
We are the people. It's our money. And like I say, going to these budget hearings in the last 2 weeks, it's frightening that nobody's there.
Well,
Nobody
the problem
speaks.
I have is like before the pandemic, I know we were showing up in mass here in Delaware County for a couple of big things. The most recent one was the solar farm thing, and then the one after that, before that, was the Works factory that was going to come in here.
Oh, the steel.
Yeah, the steel. Yeah. So we all showed up when it was an issue that affected everybody. When we were in outrage, when we were protecting our city from bad air pollutants and whatnot. So that shows me we can do it. The problem back then was still getting people to go to the meetings. And our leaders and elected officials, they wanted us to come to meetings, or they acted like they did. They said, you show up and tell me these things, that way I know. And so we started to do that. Then the pandemic hit. We all got kind of locked in our homes, started the online versions, and that's not really changed, has it?
There's still a lot of people that do Zoom, and again, the government started to do that, but now, as you found out last week, they can't afford it.
Yes.
And
that's subjective as well. I mean, they can't afford it part. I mean, because, all right, let's just go into the topic of today then. Budget meetings. We were doing this at a county level the last couple of weeks, and it started a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was August 23rd, when county council met.
Right.
And Ryan Webb who is a city councilman. Is he at large? I can't remember if he's a district or at large. At any rate, I'll find that out later and post that information in the comments. But he proposed and asked if they were going to live stream the budget meetings for the public.
Right.
Because they are done during the day. They're very lengthy, you know. And at the city level, we, in the last couple of years, have had an issue with budget committee. Even one year we had to go back to our old budget from the year before because they didn't come up with a new budget.
They did not have the support for what the administration wanted.
Right.
And by law, if a school or a government doesn't pass a tax budget within the deadline, they have to
resort to the old one.
Yeah, they resort to last year's spending.
Yes, and that is a very expensive process because every budget's bigger than the year before, so resorting to an old budget is going to leave places short. And you may have a surplus in other places, and it's not that easy to move line items around.
Well, herein lies the problem with the process. The process, like we went to the county last week, and the process is that they have the public speak before they even tell you what they're going to spend the money on.
I can't believe the school board, all right? Now, these are meetings.
This month.
But that's a part of it. But, you know, we go to the school board meetings, which I've not really gone to a lot because I don't have school-age children. All right? In general, I try to touch every topic in the community under category, but I don't delve too deep unless there's a reason or something big's going on because I just don't have time. However, I go to these school board meetings, and you have to register your name at the beginning of the meeting, so you have to get there a little early, right? And, well, that's how it used to be. They're changing that. All right, and I'll get to that in a minute. But then you have to sign your name up, and then at the beginning of the meeting, they do the, you know, Pledge of Allegiance and all that, and then they ask for public speak right then. Before they've ever talked about a single thing, all right?
Even on that agenda,
Yeah, they've not talked about anything on the agenda that we're getting ready to do. All right, you pick one of them up, or you can look at it early. But they don't. What are you speaking on? You haven't heard them do anything yet.
Exactly.
And so now they're changing it to where you have to register 24 hours before, and you can do that in person by going out all the way to Calvin Road, the Ivy Tech building, and finding out where the room is. You know, and it's straight down the hall.
I don't think a lot of people know that the school administration building has changed like 3 times over the last several years.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Downtown, it was over at Oakwood at the old Anthony School. It went out to the Career Center. And about a year ago, they made a deal with Ivy Tech to take over one of the buildings when Ivy Tech built that new building downtown, and they're out there now. Well, now, let me tell you a little bit about the schools. We were there, and a couple things that I was concerned about that they didn't talk about education program. Well, they did a good job of explaining the budget and a better job because I think a lot of people don't know they've got $34 million in federal money.
Yes, they
that was enabled them to redo the East Washington, South View, and West View. Now that saved taxpayers those millions of dollars because if they didn't have a source of federal money, like
we would have been.
Yeah, they would have had to raise taxes.
The federal money, let's be real, that's still our tax money.
I know it's still our money.
It's our money no matter what
but we're not paying property.
Yeah, it's not out of our direct paycheck.
Now they are asking for a tax increase, but of course, as a lot of people know,
that's not how they word it.
Well, the problem still is that the numbers don't lie. You can get on Indiana Gateway and find every single budget, local.
Just Google Indiana Gateway.
And you'll also find financial reports. It's like the commissioner saying, "Well, we don't have the money."
Yeah, I know. I
record the meetings.
Animal services report off of there.
Yeah.
And you can tell everything that they've spent and how many dogs and cats they've had come through there, and it's a very interesting report.
Oh, it is a portal that has
everything. It keeps you from having to make a lot of freedom of information.
But let me tell you a little bit about the cash, because if you go and watch their cash balances from year to year, the local talk about, well, we got to bail out the government, we don't have money for this, we can't do that. In December 31st, 2021, Muncie posted a cash, and this is money in the bank, $71 million. Delaware County had a $59 million cash balance. And these are cash dollars that they have right now, not in lieu of taxes to be paid.
It's important to note that that was in 2021.
Right.
When we were just barely starting to get STEMI money in, right? It just came in toward the end of the year. And so that was a rough year because we were shut down for most of the beginning of the year. Everybody was, our government practically shut down. I mean, so you have that all this going on and the repercussions of COVID, and so it probably was a tight year just to have. They might even have more that's what I'm saying. Normally, what would it stand at? Are you able to access old records?
This gateway has records over the last few years, but the latest record, that's what those cash balances were at the end of 21.
Okay.
And while the government with the city wanting to use that $31 million they got in federal American Rescue Plan money, they took about a third of it to bail out city government, and the mayor insists that they don't have the money, and then they gave another $7 million to the sanitary district, another tax district that has a tax base. It has a utility.
State too.
And this crisis center that we've all been talking about, but we're not doing anything other than the mayor giving IU Health $2 million. And I talked to some people in addiction services the other day, which brings up an event that's going to be Saturday there at the IU Addiction Treatment Center.
Right.
The old Boss building next to Meridian.
I know where it
It'll
is.
be a day-long event to help people with their addictions.
So they're hoping people that have addictions will show up.
And there'll be health care providers there.
Okay.
Kind of like...
it's like a fast track, like a speed dating through addiction.
And as you told me the other day, they now have a Narcan machine at the ER.
Yes.
Even though churches like Avondale and Urban Light have that for people.
They've had a lot of programs where people could go get trained on how to, because me and my previous boss, who had gone to a class in Noblesville when I was a bail agent. Because we were downtown Anderson, and there was needles all over the place when they had the needle program that the taxpayers are paying for there. Now they have one that is run on the public, on the health department. So the taxpayers aren't paying for it, but there was needles all over that town. We were definitely afraid when we got to take the trash out one day and somebody'd be back there ODing. So we went and we took a course. It was like an hour a week for 6 weeks, and then we got free Narcan to keep at the office in case that happened. I'd rather do that and plan ahead and not need it than the opposite. Narcan's the difference between life and death and another chance for some people, and it's some people's rock bottom. So as long as you're getting the information on addiction when this happens hand in hand, you have an opportunity to maybe change your life here, and they can't do any of that if they're dead.
Exactly, because we know that OD deaths go
unreported. They're on the rise.
But they are rising.
Yes.
There's still a serious drug problem in this community.
There is. And suicide is important to note in the last 2 years. Now, we're waiting on the 21 numbers to come out. We only have numbers up to 2020. But suicide in men ages 40 to 60 is up. In young men around 18 to 21, it's up. And then, ironically, men over 80, it's up. And it's across the country as well as we are right on board with the numbers across the country,
Liz,
too.
I know a lot of women that contemplate being alone, losing a spouse, having other...
It's happening to men, too, now.
I know.
And with
everybody.
With COVID, it took a great portion of our loved ones away from us. So these numbers are all askew because of COVID. But at the same time, it's really important to note for future generations when they have a disaster of this kind or anything like it, that they can rely on some of these numbers and they'll have a plan as to what might happen in there economically.
That's why we need to quit talking about a crisis center and open a crisis center.
I know. Well, we thought we were getting one with the jail. Excuse me.
Well, that's the only hope between
that's how they sold the jail to us
and the hospital.
So, all right. So we have that going on last week. What other things went on last week besides the budget? I know that for me, I wanted to talk about Middletown property management real quick. We'll probably do a show on it later. I'm just touching real quick. It's been viral for 2 weeks now. I know it's been hot in Delaware County Community Awareness. Oh my gosh, you guys have been so forthcoming in putting out the pictures of the homes that you're living in, and thank you for that, because until we know something, we can't acknowledge it and we can't fix it. So we're blessed in our members that they are willing to share their personal stories with us. And make no mistake, everyone, this is a terrible story. The conditions that these people are living in because of this property management company, the Middletown Property Management, as well as the subsidiary BSU Rentals, who is not associated with Ball State University, I will say. The way these people have been living, who pay their rent. Now, let me just get that out there. They pay their rent. They are living in feces coming up in their showers. They are living in their babies sleeping next to mold, black mold, and walls. It is atrocious. They have been to the city council and asked for help. They were told to go to the building commissioner, to the state board of health. They are being turned away there, saying, not our problem. Nobody can do anything because it's up to the General Assembly. I say that's bullshit.
Well, now remember, Liz, what the lawmakers did the last 2 years over renter-landlord relations. First, they said the local government had no business in that. The governor vetoed, and then they came back and overrode his veto.
And so that's what I'm talking about. A lot of us are starting right now with this election, putting some of the people into those spots who are going to be doing the vote.
And we elect all 100 representatives.
So now there's there's a couple representatives. I think is Sue Arrington running?
Sue Arrington.
That's her district is 34.
Running against Dale Basham is running against Sue Arrington, who's been a long time state rep.
And I know a lot of you. Yeah, and a lot of you have seen Dale. He's been going door to door. I know on the south side, I've seen him myself going around. And they're getting around. I know Amanda Dunnick is been around to my area because we got her information on our door the other day. I'm on the east side, which is where we're recording from today. And we are going to hit other areas, but for now, that's where we're at. So I know that the politicians are out, but some of our representatives are running for these positions in the legislature, which can actually help us. So we need to keep that in mind now in this election as well as the other one. And that leads me to my second announcement, voter registration. If you are not registered to vote in today's world, I just don't even know what you are doing with your life. All right, first off, it is your civic duty, and I know people are going to say there's a civic responsibility and then there's a duty. This is a duty.
Exactly.
Okay, people have died for you to have this right. There are people who died trying to come here to live so that they can vote, and it is their great pleasure to do that when they become a citizen here. We need to get back to that. All right, my grandfather did not get his throat cut in Korea, so I could not be a part of this world that he created for me. And not only that, but you're voting for people who can't vote yet. We're going to hand our children this world one day, and we have to make decisions now and help have lawmakers and people in there that are going to take care of our children when they come of age. And so the decisions we make now are making decisions for people who can't speak. You got elderly and sick and infirm, and you have the mentally ill. All of these things at a local level affect them directly. I mean, not as well as your streets and your school boards and everything. Everything that, your B&B tax that you hate so much, your wheel taxes.
Everybody.
Then you got food and beverage tax. We have all these other taxes, right? That goes to your local government. So those directly affect your paycheck. Directly, and your world that you live in, how you like the streets.
Remember, since we're still talking about the upcoming November election, we exist in a state over the last 10 years of a one-party state.
That's right.
Conservatives control the legislature, the governor, city hall, town halls. There is not a two-party system, and when that fails in a lot of these states, and I'm saying the same thing about California and New York, which are left, liberal states.
Yeah.
If you don't have contested elections, and like this year, we have so many vacancies on the ballot that it's
For Democrats, yes.
Yeah, Democrats. Yeah. Well, I remember a few years ago, Republicans were the same way.
To be honest, both parties locally are in disarray.
Well,
the Democrats are recovering after Tyler's, mistake and crime, if you will. And then, the Republicans just lost Victor Whitehead, who's been in that position for how long?
Couple years.
Yeah, and he's been affecting politics much longer than that. So, they're both in disarray right now. To be honest, me as a new person, I feel like I'm new because I've only been back here a few years. But, I don't want to join either party because I don't want to be associated with that nonsense. Now, I just want good people in my government.
We talked before, Liz, that it's not about the party anymore. It's about candidates and how they create a community around themselves to get elected. Even though...
That's true.
Even though, the grand old party, as we know it, has been kind of taken over by the Pence boys, Mike and Greg. Mm-hmm. And, of course, this... in 20, this was a hard Republican state because...
Well, but the Republicans around here are split. They have the renegade Republicans who are not recognized by the party, and then they have the Victor Whitehead section, And so when the party itself is split, and the Democrats have been going through a lot of the same juggles and, what they're doing, it is a mess for the voters. Well, so that's why it is important, like you just said, to vote for the candidate and what their platform is. And then the other part of that is to show up after you've elected them to make sure they're doing what they said they would.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the mayor, for example.
Or the commission.
Yeah, so you got to show up and you got to have follow-up and make sure and go, hey, no. You said you were going to do this.
But
why are you not doing it? Yes. So that's that's my announcements. Voter registration, if you need help getting registered to vote, it is a simple online thing. We can do it. I'm going to do some ones out in the area live. So if I'm out somewhere and you see me,
deadline's coming up next month.
It's October 11th,
right,
and then on October 12th, early voting starts. Mm-hmm. So we want to get in as many of you as I can. Now, I know some of the local elections, and I look back at them, they've been less than 1,000 votes between the winner and loser here locally.
And Indiana has historically the lowest voter turnout in the country.
It's ridiculous.
In the country.
I think it's 18 or 28%.
It was under 30%.
Yeah, I think it was 28% when I looked at it recently.
And some of the primaries are even under 20%.
Yeah, right. All right, so do you have any other announcements, things that happened last week?
I've been out, not just going to government meetings, but I've been somebody that's worked in the downtown, enjoyed the downtown for years, and we're seeing major changes going on downtown.
Well, yeah, we are with Accutech #1.
Well, yes, there's new money down there. Not only Accutech that's buying up property quicker than they announced
They're amazed this last week.
I was surprised. Shocked. I was very surprised.
I was really disheartened to hear that. They're amazed. I owned docks in 1998. And in 1999, Vera Mays moved in just a couple away from me, and there was no downtown then. There was nothing downtown. David Letterman Alley I don't even want to tell you what it used to be called. So Vera Mays and people that have owned docks through the years worked really hard in the last 30 years to help that downtown get developed with Cheryl Crowder, who's done a lot of work down there, and Mike Martin with the Muncie Mardi Gras. So there's been a lot of things that have created that downtown, but back then we didn't have much. And Vera Mays getting bought by Accutech, who also has been buying other things downtown.
Right, they bought Paisl's.
Yeah.
They picked up 2 other businesses. Yeah, that Paisl's building has got a beautiful auditorium.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now the talk is Adam Unger, who owns Accutech, and it's a financial software company. they are talking about another restaurant, but we don't have any details.
I just don't see them having their restaurant that's geared for families inside of Architect Building downtown. I don't see them putting the time and care into Vera Mays that they did, because they're two completely different types of restaurants.
Right. Well, there's
you wouldn't even use the same vendors.
Yeah, but they're all different people, Liz. You know, there's the fine dining group.
I just think something's going to give. If you're not a master of one thing, you are master of none.
Frankly, I think they're just washing the money they make from software into other businesses, because you accumulate too much wealth, you're going to be taxed.
Well, how can he be taxed? Did he get an abatement downtown?
Yeah, they got tax benefits.
And 160 parking spaces downtown.
They also, and they also got
5
land.
parking and land.
Yeah, they got benefits.
But I'm sure the mayor isn't involved in that.
What I'm concerned about is one or two groups, and I don't want to
blast them.
No, I don't want to think about why this new money that's coming in here, like with Mike Jennings, that they gave the jail, the old Justice Center away, and he's turned it into condos. There's another property management group called Campus Edge.
I didn't get a chance to look that up either.
Well, you can see them right downtown because they've acquired the old Williamson building.
Which one's that?
Well, it's right there at Washington and Walnut, across from the county building.
Oh, okay.
And they've had, I think the plan is, again, apartments. Now, I'm still not convinced that this housing plan that government is helping.
It's not working.
Well, I don't know where these people are coming. Now, I know with that can pack factory out on Fusion Road that they're going to need 300 people, but people are so mobile, Liz.
And the can pack jobs aren't general knowledge jobs. They're a little more, you have to have a little more to get them.
You have to know how to operate the machine.
Yes, and so you would have to have some training. So these are not walking off the street. You can get a good paid job.
Some might be distribution or packing. Again, I don't know the plan because...
Well, I'm just thinking if it was really geared that way, they would have said so by now.
Well, most manufacturing starts with the product.
Right.
And then they put it in a box, and then they put it on a truck or a train.
Well, just like our unions are not being utilized here.
That's really...
Our citizens are not being utilized to their best advantage either.
They're not even using local suppliers like Nap Supply. It's been around here for a century.
Yeah?
Or Modern Building out here on 32. None of those suppliers are getting any work out of these contractors. Are coming in and they don't use union labor.
That's because they're out-of-state contract or out-of-state development companies.
They're basically non-union contractors. And my dad was a union carpenter
and
for 30 years.
I can attest that you have been at every single meeting I have seen you go to for the last 6 months, and almost every one you get up and ask, are there going to be union workers on the project?
Are there going to be local labor?
And they always say what? Well, we hope so.
Yeah, they can only hope. While they're giving them tax breaks.
Yes, just like the mayor saying that he's not involved in this property management stuff when 2 of his projects that he presented. Really? I was told this the other day. 2 of his projects that he presented that are currently already in Middletown Property Management, because they've already gotten the job to manage that property. 2 of those projects have them already in it, but I was told yesterday or the day of the city council meeting, whatever day that was, Monday. I was told while I was online watching it that that the mayor doesn't have nothing to do with them projects.
That is not exactly.
And one was on South Wave Plaza Deal, and the other one's the White River Lofts.
At every step of the way, as he is also the city's economic development director.
Oh, yeah. He wears many hats.
Yeah, well, you should go to these redevelopment commission meetings and see him be.
When are those?
They're usually on a Thursday.
I'll check it out online and we'll post that. We're going to get up all meetings. I'm in the process of doing those editing things right now for that.
Because, see, that is his job as economic development director, to bring programs and people and jobs to them, because they actually approve the breaks. Now, some of these have to be presented to city council, but you've been to council meetings to see him present economic development
I
deals
also see
that
him
include tax breaks.
circumvent city council, bringing it to
How
council. Like when we did the last press release about the license plate readers. And there was 3 people that showed up to the press release, me, you, and another podcaster, and then Channel 6, my bad, 6 people.
Yeah, there was a television.
Yeah, there was a Channel 6 there. They presented his license plate readers to press, but we couldn't ask questions. We had to write them down on note cards, and they picked whichever one they read, and they changed my question. And so, we didn't get to speak on the license plate readers because he kept it from going to council, which we would have gotten to.
Well, now sooner or later, Liz, if they ever get paid, which they probably will, because you saw how many hundreds of cities and towns are using this.
Yeah, I also saw how many states, 16 in fact, that have put out new ordinances and laws restricting government's access to all these records and restricting what they can use for them because it protects our right to privacy.
Exactly.
And I am right now in process of helping that process here. I know our police has had trouble in the past and had lawsuits against them, which we settled. Gag orders on them. That they have already run citizens' names without probable cause through NCIC, and that's the police department.
Saw that on the news
and that's
today.
who's going to be in charge of the policy and what they do with this information right now is the police department. And so I am trying to find out more on that, the location of the places, because I didn't see them going up on entrances and exits. Yes, I have. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request last Thursday. Mm-hmm. So by next Monday, they need to have sent me a message to tell me when they will have that information for me, and I will share it.
Well, and just what popped up today, the federal government is taking our data from our phones, which we all know about, but it's slowly coming out in the media because, again, somebody's always watching. Yeah. This might not be China, but the states, I don't want to become one.
The states that are pulling this license plate reader from their books, they all had something go wrong. For example, it read a wrong license plate and they pulled over the wrong car. It totally got used in an inappropriate way by an officer in some way, shape, or form. They had things go wrong because they did not have an ordinance, just like our air quality. The reason words came here is because we didn't have an air quality thing in place.
Yeah, the state doesn't have much.
So the city put one out. Now we have an air quality control. So that's all I want is them to make an ordinance restricting what access they have to this and what they can do with it and who they can share it with.
Exactly.
That's all I want. Then I don't care because I'm not doing nothing illegal. All right? It's not about me worrying about that. It's about if you don't protect this right, tomorrow they take another one, the next day they take another one, the next day they take another one.
Oh, we've seen that, haven't we?
Yes, through the pandemic. And we are holding on by the skin of our teeth to public information rights here.
Just lately, like abortion.
Yes, so, all right, well, you got any more announcements?
Oh, yeah, I've got something that hasn't really seen the light of day yet.
That?
I live out in Yorktown, and for the last 10 years, that's been a one-party rule. And for that 10 or 15 years, there's been one man, Pete Olson, who's the town manager, who is the chief executive. This town doesn't have an elected mayor, although it could. Because I know smaller towns.
Do any other towns utilize the town manager besides Yorktown and Delaware County?
No, not in Delaware County.
Okay, I didn't think
because
it's not done usually.
Generally, the only elected official that works as an executive is a clerk treasurer that handles the money as far as the revenue coming in and paying the bills that go out. Yep. And then you have an elected council that actually sets policy and approves spending.
And they're there's checks and balances
right.
Right?
Now, last Friday, Pete handed the council president, Lon Fox, a letter saying he was resigning immediately. He didn't say what he was doing, where he was going. The next day, Lon puts on the Yorktown Facebook that Pete had resigned and thanking for his service. Well, we talked to a couple council members, and he didn't tell them what he was doing. They said there was going to be an announcement of another job.
Is that considered the announcement?
Well, no, he's got another job, so I guess we have to wait. But in the meantime,
Is there an interim?
In the last, well, the way the law works, the council president is like the chief executive now until they decide.
And who's that there?
Lon Fox.
Lon Fox.
Who works at the UPS store. Mm-hmm. He's part of a group that taxed and indebted that community for a town hall, a park, and they used eminent domain against the elderly who held property there for almost a century because they wouldn't give up the property. And it created such a division that it's taken 2 or 3 election cycles in the last 10 years finally to move them forward. But on Monday, there's going to be a council meeting at Town Hall at 5:30. Not only are they going to address where Pete went or why he just resigned immediately, they're also going to hire a new marshal, which was a big controversy. Remember last spring when they hired a Noblesville cop to be the Yorktown cop, and it wasn't hardly 2 or 3 months that they got in a battle over
with the sheriff
and the state police over while they were trying to discipline another officer there about what the response time would be, and it
snowballed into a big mess.
Yeah, well, it was.
Yeah, a lot of officers ended up quitting over that.
Some of them did.
Yeah, I mean, I know one in particular that quit, who had been there on the drug task force with Jesse Neal, who is now serving his sentence for defrauding our community.
Theft and fraud.
Theft, yes. I mean, let's just say it what it is. I believe in accountability. And you steal from us as a community, when we're hit as hard as we are here, and we're all trying as hard as we can to get people involved, to get them involved, to watch that shit show.
Exactly.
That is a really hard thing to do. And I mean, if I have anything to say to politicians, it's that. Because people like me explain your words to the regular people because they don't understand what you're talking about. And you know that. That's why you use them words. I get it. I know the game. But my job is to explain it. And when I tell them it works a certain way, here's how government works, I do guides that train them on that. We do videos that train them. I'm trying here. And then y'all go out and you do things like that. You know how long that's going to take to heal here? First off, we've never been apologized to by any of these people who've done it with the sanitation department or anything.
Liz, it's history in this town. Back in the 20s.
Yes, that's how this town was made.
The mayor was convicted of mail fraud.
Yeah, we had
kind of mail fraud.
We had a prostitute that owned a truck stop out on 28, and she ran for sheriff once. We had murderers in office. We had all kinds of things going on, and that's how we were created.
And this wasn't the first sewer gate either, because we had a sewer gate back under another mayor's administration in the 70s.
That's right. We
sanitary official and a contractor were indicted.
You know,
but the sanitary official was found not guilty.
The good old boy system got us here where we're at today. Now you can look at that 2 ways. One, we're here, aren't we? You know, we're still here. But 2, we're in a mess. And the good old boy system is not working for the people anymore because we are more involved, we're more educated because the access we have online. And then with groups like mine, podcasts, there's a lot of information being put out there, and it's going to hit you somewhere where you live.
Sooner or later.
You got kids in school that it affects, or blah, 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 right? So people today are hooked up in a way that they weren't back then, and we want transparency. I can't say it enough. Y'all run on your platforms to get elected using that word, but it's a word that's going to bring us to the next segment of our podcast here today, and it is about the budget meetings at the county level, because I think it's important to know what your government officials think of you as a taxpayer. And these are people that we have elected over and over and over again in several different capacities in our government. This isn't their first rodeo. It's not their first year as a commissioner or a councilman. These people are lifelong politicers, and a lot of them are running for other offices, like one of the members of this that we're going to talk about, Scott Alexander's running for Senate. So these are people you're going to see again, and they're going to be affecting bigger laws. And if we have trouble at this level, I have to ask ourselves, are they the best person to go do that job elsewhere?
County government has historically been what should I call it? Like serial office holders. There are 3 people on that county council are reviewing the budget now. About 31 million they spend this year. It's about 5 million over. The meeting I went to last week, those 3 that have been in government all their lives. Ron Quakenbush, a former commissioner and council member.
Too, right?
No, Ron has always been. He was a contractor.
Oh, okay, my bad.
And he approved the original Justice Center downtown. He wouldn't vote for the new Justice Center at the Wilson School because he didn't want to burden taxpayers again. Jane Lassiter, who has farm and agriculture interests in Albany, she has held a handful of offices most of her life. And her family, her daughter, who's now the county recorder, and a niece who serves on
Nepotism
county.
much?
Well, the one that was elected was, and both of them were elected. So it's the people that
and
are.
And then you have the commissioner,
and then you've
James
got
King, who is a sheriff, the sheriff over in Daleville.
Marshall.
And
Yeah, both Henry and King are double dippers.
No,
they work
Henry
a day
is
job.
Not at Albany anymore.
Did he resign?
Yes, or he's retired, I believe.
Retired.
Yeah, I just heard that information, but he was Albany's.
When?
I'm not sure. I didn't follow up on that because it's
we
been
need
so
to
much
find
going
out.
on. I will find that out. But he still wears a gun on his waist. So
we don't even need a permit for it.
I know, but
open
in
carry.
a county building. So we are going to come back after a brief break from our sponsors, which we have to make them happy. They make us happy, and our sponsors are always local-owned businesses, and not Walmart, not Meijer. Local-owned businesses. We give special advertising rates for that. So we are going to give them some time to do what they do, and we will be back with Rick Yencer and me, Elisabeth Edgell, and More Than Meets the Eye, and talk about our county budget when we return. Thank you.